Good afternoon, everybody. This year, I was not going to teach, but I heard two new developments. One is chemical engineering and BTech students, they are going to work together for a design problem. Is that truth? Yes. Yeah. And secondly, some of the master students are going to go to industry and contribute substantially, whatever they can. So I thought this background will be excellent so that there will be positive contribution. Whenever I give public lecture on reactor design, I announce publicly that if I have not visited your plant, I will increase your profitability by 30% at least. Only condition is I should not have seen your reactors. So the hidden secret behind that I am going to teach you. And the secret in stepwise manner is as follows. The total title is Design of Multiphase Reactors. And we execute the design in 3 steps. The first step we call is determination of rate controlling step. And estimation of overall rate of reaction. Second step is actual process design. And third step is estimation of design parameters. Most of the matter which I am going to teach you, I will write myself on the board. I have very few slides. So out of these 3 steps, I am going to teach you only one step, that is the first one, the determination of rate controlling step and estimation of overall rate of reaction. The other 2 steps I teach when I take the entire course consisting of about 40 hours. Now I wish to take maybe perhaps 5 hours, perhaps 10 hours of that order. But definitely I will complete the first step. So the way in which the multiphase reactions are practiced in industry and these reactors are designed, the whatever yield we get, the product we get from the reactants, the stoichiometric quantity that we expect, the actual points are much less than what we desire. And there are several reasons. As we go further, I will tell you. Now, when we don't get the quantity of product that we want, there are two problems associated. One is cost of production obviously increases, because per ton of product we need more raw material than stoichiometric quantity. That is straightforward. But the second part, the byproducts which are generated, they contribute to pollution, and we need to treat them, and you will be surprised to know that 10 to 20% of the cost of production we need to spend for the pollution abatement. So, from both the fronts, we need to think very carefully and try to get as good yield as possible. And that exactly is the secret how I promise to increase the profitability. But I have just now made sentences. I have yet to explain you how to do that, and that I am going to do. The most of the secret lies in step 1, which I am going to teach you. So, multi-phase reactors are of different types. Bubbles, drops and particles. You must have seen in laboratory bubbles rising, all right, and in liquid-liquid reactions, drops either rising or falling. You most probably have fluidization experiment. Below the minimum fluidization velocity, the bed is fixed, and either liquid is used as a continuous phase or gas is used as a continuous phase, and the solid particles beyond the minimum fluidization, they suspend on their own when the force balance is satisfied. The gravity minus buoyancy is equal to drag. When this equation is satisfied, then every particle is capable of suspending itself, and we say that the particle is fluidized. So, multi-phase means the dispersed phase. If you see a column in which there is a liquid and bubbles are flowing upwards, bubbles, they looked like they are dispersed, plenty bubbles, they are not, they are touching each other, but it is not continuous, whereas liquid phase is continuous. When liquid drops are falling, like in spray column are very popular, particularly spray drying. In that case, liquid drops fall, and that is also multi-phase. So, if I want to write variety of multi-phase reactors, one I told you, gas liquid. So, bubbles of gas which is dispersed phase, they move in continuous liquid. The other example I gave you, the liquid drops they fall in continuous gas. So, the nomenclature you must have understood by now. The first letter is the dispersed phase, the second one is continuous phase. So, in the same manner, we have taken only bubbles as dispersed phase. When we take liquid as dispersed phase, liquid drops, then these are liquid-liquid systems. Few minutes ago, I explained the fixed bed and fluidized bed. There is a bed of particles. Whenever there is a flow of liquid below the minimum fluidization velocity, you have a fixed bed. But solid particles, that is solid, liquid. So, solid liquid fixed bed or solid gas fixed bed or fluidized bed, then gas, liquid, solid, where the solid phase can be either catalyst or it can undergo chemical reaction. Are you able to hear me backside? Yes? Yeah. Are you able to see whatever is written on the board? Right. Gas, liquid, solid. And there are few more possibilities like gas, liquid, liquid. But while we study the step 1, determination of rate controlling step and estimation of overall rate of reaction, we need not consider every multi-phase system separately. I am going to teach you a generalized methodology which is applicable for all the multi-phase systems, which I will of course explain you in great detail that how it is applicable. So, maybe initially I will describe to you the methodology for gas liquid, and then it will be extended to maybe liquid liquid, then gas solid or liquid solid or liquid drops in gas, how it can be extended to each case, that part will also be covered. Now, there are several examples of industrial importance, and I have a big list, and several slides have been prepared. Under each category, how many examples are there? For gas, liquid, solid, where solid undergoes chemical reaction, 50 examples. Where a solid particle is a catalyst, 30 examples. Gas, liquid reactions, 100 examples. Liquid, liquid reactions, 40 examples. Plenty examples are there. But you will appreciate these examples after perhaps 1 hour of teaching. So, I will show you those examples little later, but right now, just for understanding sake, maybe I will give you 2-3 examples under each category. So, gas liquid reactions, hydrogenation, oxidation, chlorination, hydrochlorination or hydrohalogenation, chlorination or halogenation, ammonolysis, ozonolysis, and there is a big category of gas liquid reactions. Specifically to give you example of oxidation and hydrogenation, the manufacture of hydrogen peroxide so this is ethyl naphthalene. I am explaining you examples of industrial importance before I teach you the determination of rate controlling step. So, first example I have taken, all the examples which you hear from me are those examples for which reactors I have designed myself. So, I know very intimately what is happening inside, and I have designed more than 1000 reactors. So, you will hear quite a few examples, quite a few you will not hear, but the basic methodology of determination of rate controlling step, this does not get repeated 1000 times. That methodology is only one that you try to understand very carefully. So, ethyl naphthalene, I am telling you the procedure for making hydrogen peroxide. So, hydrogenation, in the presence of hydrogen, we are supposed to saturate only one ring. You can imagine that there was hydrogen here, 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 and this is saturated now, and you get, so twice of hydrogen, one ring is saturated. This you oxidize and get ethyl naphthalene. So, there are two reactors. You carry out hydrogenation and get one ring saturated. You have 4 hydrogen atoms sitting at these locations. When you oxidize, then those hydrogen atoms are oxidized and you get hydrogen peroxide. This is the commercial method of making hydrogen peroxide. There are some issues which are faced commercially. We will go into those details when needed. So, this is hydrogenation and oxidation, both are included in the same example. If you take the manufacture of paracetamol, I think everybody knows paracetamol. Anybody not knowing paracetamol? So, we start from benzene, simple benzene, and first of all carry out chlorination, and we get chlorobenzene. Whenever we do chlorination, of course, chlorination does not stop here, we get dichloro, trichloro, and we need to distill for getting pure chlorobenzene, which we do nitration. So, first step is chlorination, second is nitration, and we get nitrochlorobenzene. This is further reacted with NaOH and Cl is replaced by OH, and you get Cl, you will get NO2, and Cl gets converted to OH. So, you get para-hydroxynitrobenzene, which is hydrogenated and the nitro group gets converted to NH2 group, and you get para-aminophenol. So, the chlorination, the first step is gas liquid system. When it is nitration, the chlorobenzene and aqueous nitric acid, these are immiscible, and this is liquid system. When we hydrolyze with NaOH, this is further again liquid system. Right? Then when we hydrogenate further, it becomes gas liquid system again. Right? And finally, it is reacted with acetic anhydride to give finally, and this becomes liquid system, because this is not miscible with each other, and the NH2 group. So, here you have OH, and this becomes NHCOCH3. So, gas liquid, liquid, gas liquid, and finally, that is called paracetamol. All right. We wear polyester, and polyester monomer, it is made by air oxidation. The principal reaction is air oxidation. We take paraxylene, which is diluted in acetic acid, This example particular which I am going to tell you, that was analyzed by the method which I am going to teach you in early 90s, and the resulting solution, and I am going to tell you the benefits out of that, is now employed throughout the world, that particular design. But I am going to tell you what was the secret there, what was the improvement, what was the innovation, right? So, you take paraxylene, and with the acetic acid is medium. So, typically we take 20% paraxylene and 80% acetic acid, and the oxygen, it is air oxidation. So, oxygen from air, and we get COH. That is terphthalic acid. And when terphthalic acid is reacted with ethylene glycol, perhaps you know how ethylene glycol is made. Now, this is air oxidation or this is gas liquid system. We take ethylene glycol. First of all, ethylene is oxidized to make ethylene oxide and fixed bed catalyst. So, that is gas solid case, and ethylene oxide is hydrolyzed with water to give ethylene glycol. So, OH CH2 CH2OH is ethylene glycol. When it reacts with terphthalic acid, OH and COH, we get water and another end group of OH, you attach terphthalic acid and you get polymer, and that is called polyester. Have you understood ethylene glycol and the polymerization reaction? Yes? Yes? Yeah, but that is not very important. I am just telling you large number of examples. If you take gas solid, say for example, or liquid solid, in the case of liquid solid, all the crystallizations, the ion exchange, the adsorptive separations, the chromatographic separations, all these are liquid solid. The gas solid, large number of catalytic reactions, the making of ethylamines and ethanolamines. So, all these fall under the liquid solid case. If you take gas solid, then combustion of coal, which is employed in thermal power plants, that is the example of gas solid. In the solid phase, the particles move under fluidized condition, and during the residence time of 1 or 2 seconds, the particles are completely oxidized. So, this is a solid gas reaction. Solid particles are suspended in continuous gas medium and complete oxidation occurs. So, if when you have coal and you are oxidizing completely where sufficient oxygen is there, this is called combustion. This is called complete combustion. This same process can be used for gasification, where we do not provide oxygen in that much quantity. So, the gasification reaction, that is coal plus water, that is C plus H2O, giving carbon monoxide. You must have studied reforming reactions, right? So, C plus H2O gives CO plus H2, that is carbon monoxide and hydrogen, and this mixture, which is called synthesis gas, is used for a variety of things. You can selectively manufacture gasoline, kerosene, diesel, and large number of alcohols and aldehydes and ketones, depending upon the catalyst that you use. The point I am emphasizing here is only one, what are the examples of industrial importance under variety of categories. So, gas solid with more than stoichiometry, the oxygen is in excess, the combustion occurs. The gasification reaction is endothermic, and for providing the heat of reaction, we provide some oxygen and some carbon is oxidized just to provide for heat of reaction, and we get carbon monoxide and hydrogen at the outlet, and we also get some CO2 which is formed because of the need for heat of reaction, but this is gas solid. Now, these days we want to reduce the carbon footprint, right. So, coal is a source, and the carbon dioxide liberated from coal is considered as what is the name for that? The carbon dioxide and chlorofluoromethanes and greenhouse gases. So, recently all the countries in the world, they have signed a pact in Paris, and is called Paris Pact, where CO2 is to be reduced by how much? 20%, 35%, 45% by 2030. So, we need to reduce, but if we combust biomass, the biomass is formed by the photosynthesis reaction, that is carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide plus water on the catalyst and the solar energy, you get carbohydrate. What is this reaction you can call? This is occurring in the nature extensively. There are green leaves, chlorophyll, which is a catalyst, and carbon dioxide and water, both of them reach the catalyst surface and you get carbohydrate. So, what is this type? Is it gas solid, gas liquid, liquid liquid? Gas solid. Very good, very nice. So, the biomass so generated by using carbon dioxide of air, if this biomass is combusted and we get energy, that is not called greenhouse gas. All right. So, if you can replace 50% of coal by 50% by the biomass, the waste biomass, then that is accepted. So, this is polyester. I can give you large number of examples, and as I promised you, I am going to give you at least 200 examples in the form of slides, which I am going to circulate also, which you can before you come tomorrow, just read them. I do not expect you to, if you understand, I will be very happy, but even if you do not understand, then also I will be fairly all right, but read them. Normally, when we read first time, we come to know how many pages we have read, nothing more than that, all right. So, you read second time, you read third time, right, and then come. And you can ask me any number of questions if you do not understand any one of those examples. So, variety of multi-phase systems, under each system variety of reactions of industrial importance. I am going to give you a list of only 200, but there may be examples of thousands and thousands. But for all these systems, the methodology of analysis is identical, exactly only one method, which I am going to teach you. So, let us start with the subject of determination of rate controlling step and estimation of overall rate of reaction. As I told you, I am going to explain this method for gas liquid system, and then we will extend it for all kinds of multi-phase systems. What kind of equipment are used for the analysis for variety of multi-phase systems, those also will be covered in due course of time. For gas liquid system, though there are large number of model contactors which are useful for step 1, I use the term model contactors. which I have not explained, but I'll explain in detail. The most popular equipment for the analysis of gas liquid multiphase reactions is stirred cell, which I will draw now. In the analysis of multiphase reactions, one very important assumption is made, and that is the applicability of film theory. What is film theory? If it is gas liquid, then on the either side of interface, a thin film of several microns of the order of 50 to 500 microns is formed. So, gas liquid system means the bubble is rising, you can visualize the interface. On the either side of interface, that is on both the sides, a thin film is formed. That is the first assumption. The second one is the film is completely stagnant. There is no convection, there is no dispersion, and the transport occurs mainly by molecular diffusion. And the third assumption is thickness is uniform throughout. Across the entire gas liquid interface, the thickness is uniform throughout. So, the two films are formed on the either side of interface, the thickness of which is 50 to 500 microns. These films are stagnant, no dispersion, no convection, only molecular motion and molecular diffusion, and the thickness is uniform throughout. Now, these three particular assumptions I am going to elaborate a little bit, because we are going to use film theory so extensively. The terms I used were diffusion, dispersion and convection. I said no convection occurs. Now, if you write down, now this is recorded, and if you are asked film theory, you can directly reproduce what is the meaning of film theory and these three assumptions, which you will be able to. What I want you to appreciate, what is the meaning behind diffusion, behind dispersion and behind convection. Right? Now, let me explain all these three terms little bit. I will take good amount of time for explaining these terms, and then we will go back to film theory. All of us study the kinetic theory of gases, and on the molecular level, the molecules are never stationary, they move randomly. We know that, yes, and we also know kinetic theory of gases. You studied in second year, I suppose you are in third year, and we studied this in second year or first year or in 12th standard. Very nice. So, they move randomly. Now, you imagine there is a curtain between two of us. I am on this side and you are on the other side, and there is a full curtain top to bottom. On your side you have nice air, you are able to breathe properly, but on my side there is completely ammonia. I am explaining you the difference between diffusion, dispersion and convection. Right? So, imagine this case, on your side you have nice air, on my side there is complete ammonia. The point is, on the ammonia side, ammonia molecules are moving randomly, right? On your side, the air molecules are moving randomly, and on both the sides kinetic theory holds. Right? Now, you raise the curtain is raised. Now, the ammonia molecules, they have freedom to move to your side, and air molecules have freedom to move to my side. However, whatever was the curtain, if you consider that cross section, when it is 100% ammonia on my side, because of this random motion, the number of molecules of ammonia crossing the interface, that reduces with respect to time, as the concentration difference goes down. When it is at time t is equal to 0, pure ammonia, pure air, and both the molecules are crossing each other, and with respect to time, your air concentration is going to go down, my ammonia concentration is going to go down, and eventually the ammonia concentration will be uniform throughout. Under those conditions, the ammonia molecules crossing the interface and ammonia molecules coming back to this side, these are identical, or we call it as equimolar counter diffusion. The point is, the net flux is proportional to concentration difference, right? The kilomoles per meter square transferred is directly proportional. Initially, the concentration gradient is high, and therefore, transport of air from one side to other and transport of ammonia from one side to another side, that is maximum. And the flux decreases with respect to time, and eventually the net flux. Please note that the molecular motion never stops. When concentration gradient is 0, there is equimolar motion of molecules, and we call it as equimolar counter diffusion, so that there is no net flux. So, the flux arising out of molecular motion is called diffusion. Understood? And the flux we write, since it is proportional to concentration gradient, you are familiar with Fick's law. Flux is proportional to concentration gradient. So, let us write this as dC by dx, and proportionality constant is diffusion coefficient, and the flux is in the reverse direction of concentration gradient, and therefore, the negative sign. So, this is how we write flux, and the proportionality constant diffusion coefficient is the product of the mean free path into average velocity on the molecular level. So, lambda, the mean free path, which we try to estimate using kinetic theory of gases, multiplied by average velocity, that also we can get from kinetic theory. The product of that, lambda is a length scale, meters, and velocity scale is meter per second, and diffusion coefficient is meter square per second. Right? Now, take another example. Which example I have been giving? This is my 44th year of teaching, but right from year 1, the next example I have been giving again and again and every year. And listen to my next example. We drink milk every morning, or imagine we drink milk every morning. Right? Take a glass, 200 ml, perhaps 10 centimeter height approximately, and we add sugar. Right? And sugar sits at the bottom. So, this is our glass, this is our 200 ml milk, you add sugar, and sugar is at the bottom. Sugar has solubility in milk, and therefore, the sugar is available in the dissolved form at this interface. I gave you example of ammonia and air, and now sugar molecules are free to move. Those the molecules which are dissolved, and sugar molecules will try to go to milk molecules, and milk molecules of course will try to go to the sugar region, and slowly it will homogenize, right. So, the molecular motion is in action now, and eventually we are going to get sweet milk. So, if we establish the equation for homogenization, that is flux is equal to diffusion coefficient into dC by dx. So, if you write this distance is x and this differential distance is dx, and sugar molecules are transferring in this direction. So, the flux at x, so in minus out is equal to accumulation. That is the mass balance we write. So, in is diffusion coefficient into dc by dx minus multiplied by cross sectional area, because this flux has the units of say kilomoles per meter square second. So, multiplied by cross section, say denoted by S, which is meter square. So, this flux is at this location, the sugar molecules crossing this plane, minus the differential volume. There is a inlet surface, there is a outlet surface. So, minus, let me write simple d, d times dc by dx into S at x plus dx. So, we have written in minus out. What is accumulation? The change of concentration with respect to time. So, d by dc, d by dt of the volume is S into dx, is the differential volume. Dx is height, S is cross section, that is the volume, multiplied by local concentration C. So, if you see every term, this flux is kilomoles per meter square second into cross sectional area, that is meter square. So, each term is kilomoles per second, this is also kilomoles per second. So, the volume multiplied by concentration, that is kilomoles, and d by dt of that is. Now, you know as dx tends to 0, you get d times d2c by dx square is equal to. So, you divide throughout by s dx and take limit as dx tending to 0. So, that is, since time and the space coordinate, there are two variables, the equation turns into partial differential equation. Please remember, we wish to drink milk. Prior to that, we need to solve this differential equation. All right. What are the boundary conditions? What are the boundary conditions? At one end, you have saturation concentration of. Everywhere else, at time t is equal to 0, the sugar concentration is 0, and sugar is not leaving the other interface, it is remaining in the glass, or dc by dx at the length L is equal to 0, right. That slope cannot be there, sugar cannot cross the other boundary. So, we have two boundary conditions, one initial condition, and equation can be solved. So, the answer is, if this is bottom and that is top, initially the concentration is very high, the sugar concentration is very high. This is x, whereas this is sugar concentration. Slowly diffusion occurs, and eventually we want a condition where sugar concentration is uniform throughout. The entire length we want the same, but it will pass through how many stages? Then maybe like this, like this, like this. Many stages will be there, and finally, eventually, you will get uniformity of concentration. All right? Now, if you really solve and get diffusion coefficient of sugar, which is 1 into 10 raised to minus 10 meter square per second, the time required for dissolution of sugar in milk is about 10 days. You solve this, and that too for 99% uniformity. Of course, it is good enough for us. We cannot differentiate between 99% homogeneity and 100% homogeneity, how sweet is the milk. So, that is perhaps acceptable, but 10 days are required for that. Is it acceptable? 10 days? Because you have to come to the class and learn from teachers. So, in the morning time you do not have time more than 10 seconds, and it should happen in 10 seconds. I am teaching you the difference between diffusion, dispersion and convection. So, the transport occurring, the flux occurring because of molecular motion is called diffusion, And diffusional processes, the rates which happen because of molecular motion are never acceptable to any chemical engineer, except maybe 5 or 10% examples where viscosities are very high, polymerization and the heavy suspensions and pastes where viscosities are very high. These examples are very few in practice. In majority of cases, we chemical engineers, we do not really accept the time frame given by diffusion. Right? So, if 10 days for homogenization of milk is not acceptable, what do we do? Stir, right. Or if the ammonia, if you wish to have uniformity in this classroom, then we start fan, which is as good as the putting of spoon inside the milk. And there are enough number of fans, I think 16, some good number is there. So, when fans are started or when spoon starts moving inside, there is a flow past immersed body. I have said that sentence. Let me explain to you. A car moves. So, across the car, there is a body called car, and there is a flow of air across the car. When particle settles, the particle which is a body, and there is a flow past particle. When impeller rotates, there is a flow past immersed body. When there is an aeroplane, there is a flow past immersed body. Whenever we have a wind and we stand in the wind, there is a flow past immersed body. You take any chemical engineering example, take classical pack columns, liquid trickles down from the top, it is flow past immersed body. Let it be random packings or structured packings. You take plate column, the vapor bubbles, they rise in a pool of liquid. The bubbles rising, there is flow past immersed body. You take bubble columns, you take stirred tanks, you take cyclones, you take any example, and you will amply find there are huge number of examples where there is a flow past immersed body. Right? This I typically teach in the course of fluid mechanics, but let me make it very brief. Whenever there is flow past immersed body, low pressure region is created behind the particle or a body in general, because I cannot call car as a particle, but as a chemical engineer I will still call it as a particle, because let it be a solid particle, the bubble or drop. If I want to analyze this case as a generalized case in fluid mechanics, then I will call all these as particles, including aeroplane. Right? The aeroplane is moving. So, in the low pressure region which is created, a vortex is formed, and these vortices are never stationary and stable. They release from the body, and these are called eddies. Right? These eddies are free to move, and they are free as molecules, and we have eddy motion in addition to molecular motion. The only difference between molecular motion and eddy motion is, and which is a major difference, the eddies contain millions and billions of molecules. The velocity scale on eddy level is again orders of magnitude higher than the molecular motion. So again, if you want to calculate diffusion coefficient, which is called dispersion coefficient for turbulence, which is the term used for the motion of eddies, then the length scale, the mean free path of eddies multiplied by velocity scale on the eddy level, this is much larger than 10 raised to 5 times, 10 raised to 6 times larger than the molecular diffusion coefficient. And therefore, whatever 10 days are required, you calculate seconds in 10 days divided by 10 raised to 6, 10 raised to 7, and you get the total homogenization in 10 seconds. The another important difference between eddies is much larger, that I have already told you, but eddies are never stable. They break and they break. And the in fluid mechanics we usually call, there is a mother eddy which is formed behind the particle, and this unstable eddy which is called mother, it breaks maybe into 2 or 3. Those are called daughters. And daughters, they are not stationary, they become mothers, and they break further up to micron size. So all these size distribution of eddies, all of them move randomly on the molecular level. If ammonia molecules are moving randomly, all the molecules, ammonia molecules, are identical. But whenever there is eddy motion, which results into dispersion, there is eddy size distribution, there is eddy velocity distribution. The point to be remembered is eddy is much bigger than molecules. It consists millions of molecules, and the velocity scale is also orders of magnitude. And therefore, eddy motion, it transports mass, it transports heat, it transports momentum by 10 raised to 7, 10 raised to 8 times faster than the molecular motion. So if you see any chemical engineering equipment, we are not happy with molecular motion, and we are not happy with molecular diffusion. And in all the cases, we try to incorporate some kind of turbulence and some kind of eddy motion to make the entire process faster. We introduce eddy motion, for which we need to spend something. When you move spoon, you definitely put in some amount of energy. When fan is moving, we start the fans, we have to give some energy for the motion of fan. Whenever there is flow across fixed bed, there is a pressure drop, and pressure drop multiplied by volumetric flow rate is power consumption. That power consumption, this power consumption, it generates flows, eddies, eddy motion, the dispersion, and all the processes of heat, mass, and momentum transfer. These are made faster and faster. So what we try to do, we have understood that by putting in energy, we can create eddy motion and we can make it faster. So eventually, the next step, the next sentence is very important. All of you, please attend to my next sentence. If you are thinking of something beautiful, otherwise you assume that whatever I am going to say now is most beautiful, right? So attend, everybody attend to my next sentence. As we put in energy more and more, the eddy motion becomes more and more intense, and the processes of mass, heat, and momentum transfer, they become fast. But since we are spending energy, we as chemical engineers, we try to find how much fast we should make and how much energy we should supply, because energy is not free. Therefore, for we chemical engineers, it is very important to understand the relationship between fastness. Suppose in a day we are taking 2 batches, by putting in more energy we take 3 batches, still more energy 4 batches, then you take 6 batches, right? Keep on doing that, and you are spending more and more energy. Maybe in this the terthalic example, I had to put a motor of 20 megawatt for a stirred tank, 20 megawatt motor, right? So on one side we are putting in energy, on the other side we are getting productivity. because of the enhancement of these processes. So, we need to strike a balance between whatever we are spending and what is that we are getting from the extra energy that we. So, in all the cases, practically all the cases, we try to make the system. Coming back to diffusion and dispersion, we said that in the film theory, a thin film is formed, two films are formed on the either side of interface, and these are completely stagnant. By stagnancy, we mean molecular motion is only molecular motion is there, and the momentum transfer, the mass transfer, the heat transfer occurs only by molecular motion, and there is no dispersion inside. You create any dispersion in the continuous liquid phase, as the eddies try to reach the interface, they decay completely and there is no eddy motion. Of course, this is an assumption of the film theory that there is no eddy motion. What is the meaning of convection? You understand flow through pipe, right? And if the flow is turbulent, you must have been taught that at any location in the pipeline, if you measure velocity, if this is the average velocity, then the measured velocity by any technique, maybe hot film anemometry or laser Doppler anemometry or any technique, any point of view, this is velocity versus time. So, the eddy motion is shown here by the fluctuations, and this eddy motion eventually will result into the dispersion phenomena. But the mean velocity is called convection, the mean velocity. You must have by now studied the Navier-Stokes equation and derivation of Navier-Stokes equation. So, while we take the momentum balance, we take by convection, we take by diffusion, and eventually there are terms related to convection, by diffusion, the pressure term, right. So, diffusion. So, in a pipeline the flow is turbulent, and the turbulence which I have shown, it will result into dispersion coefficient. So, in such a pipeline which is say transparent, if you inject color and if there is no dispersion at all and flow is plug flow, the plug that you incorporate, the color plug, like say for example, if there is absolutely no dispersion and the velocity is like this and there are no fluctuations, then the plug that you incorporate, that plug, it moves after some time here, and after the residence time it comes out. So, this movement of color is by convection, by mean motion. But if there is a dispersion, whenever there is dispersion, and let me draw this again. So, the initial plug, there is a dispersion of color on both the sides and you get the distribution. Then you get further distribution, and at the outlet you have the color which is diluted because of dispersion. Color moves on both the sides and it's diluted. So, this mechanism is by dispersion, by the eddy motion, this is by convection, and diffusion I have already told. The three principal assumptions of film theory are: the thin films are formed with the thickness of 50 to 500 microns on the either side of interface. The mass, momentum and heat transfer occurs because of only molecular motion, nothing else. The convection cannot reach the interface, the eddy motion cannot reach the interface, it is the only molecular motion, and the thickness of the film is uniform throughout the interface that we consider, right. I think we will take a break for 10 minutes, and while I am not here, you discuss among yourself what is not understood or what is more understood, talk to your colleagues and spend your time advantageously. Okay.